Well, I'd like to start off by welcoming to Faith and Hockey Mr. Luke Hunter. The main goal of Faith and Hockey Day is to provide a one-day learning opportunity for young aspiring hockey players, ultimately wanting to engage them in the message of Christ and then helping them apply their faith to their everyday life, not just on, but off the ice. Today, we're going to get the opportunity to talk with Luke a bit about three specific areas. One, faith and hockey. The second one being family and hockey. And then the third one being faith, skill, and hard work. Now, as a hockey player, just to kind of back it up, to give you a bit of an intro, Luke grew up playing in Shaunavon, Saskatchewan on the Canadian prairies. He eventually got drafted by the Swift Current Broncos in the WHL. For those that don't know, here in Ontario, that more has to do, it's a lot like the OHL. It's exactly like the OHL. So he got drafted there, went on to serve as team captain with the Swift Current Broncos for a few years before he went on to play in the CIS with the University of Calgary and then move into a little pro career with the Las Vegas Wranglers and then into an opportunity with the Wichita Thunder of the Central Hockey League. Now, about 7 games into that, he tells me that there was a significant eye injury that shifted the course of his life. And what's funny to me is if that amazing hockey career wasn't enough, Luke's also an incredible musician. Alongside his four brothers, yes, there are 5 of them total, JJ, Dusty, Brock, and Ty. They're widely regarded in the Canadian and the worldwide country music scene as the Juno Award nominated group, the Hunter Brothers. Now, just a little shameless plug. They're going to be here in London performing at the London Music Hall in November. He didn't ask me to say that, but I'm adding it in there just for fun. Now,
thanks.
In addition to hockey and music, Luke and his brothers, they farm on their family's 25,000 plus acre farm in Shaunavon. And they live there with their families. And Luke, his wife, Lindsay, little shout out to London. She was born and raised here in London, then met this great guy, and they have 3 beautiful kids. Now, Luke, we are blessed to have you, and I'm going to say welcome again, my friend.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for that intro. That was amazing. I wasn't expecting that. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Now, hey, before we hop into things, the town of Shaunavon, Saskatchewan, Canadian prairies, not a huge town. But what we know is that it's pumped out some pretty great hockey players through the years. Now, I can also say arguably the best women's hockey player of all time came out of Shaunavon, Hayley Wickenheiser, who most will know that name. I can only imagine if you were here with us in person for Faith and Hockey Day, that the players would be asking you the question, who did you get a chance to play alongside in your career? Can you talk to us a bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. And first of all, I do have to agree with you. Hayley Wickenheiser, I mean, I might be a little bit biased, but I do believe she is the best female hockey player to have ever lived. Yeah, she's an amazing person, probably the hardest worker you will ever meet. I have some pretty crazy stories of, her as a young girl. She wouldn't walk to the rink or get a ride to the rink, I should say. She would throw her hockey bag over her shoulder, jump on her pedal bike in the middle of winter, -40, and pedal bike herself with her hockey bag to the rink to go practice. So yeah, she's just an amazing person. Can't say enough amazing things about her. So as far as the players that I was blessed or privileged to be able to play with, yeah, there's some pretty cool ones. I grew up playing a lot of summer hockey with Ryan Getzlaff. He was a good friend of mine who obviously you guys will know was the captain of the Anaheim Ducks for a lot of years. I was able to play with him on a line on Team Canada's World Under-17s together. Him and Eric Ferrer, who actually had a great career in the NHL. Braden Colburn, who's from my hometown, just recently won a Stanley Cup a few years back. Guys like Dion Phaneuf, played against Alex Ovechkin. Brent Seabrook is a good friend of mine. So yeah, there's quite a few guys that I had the privilege of playing against that beat up on me pretty good. Oh, Shea Weber, the hardest I was ever hit ever in my entire career was against Shea Weber. I literally did a backflip on ice. He crushed me cutting across the center and took my head off. And I have video footage of doing a backflip on the ice, just getting creamed by him. So yeah, some pretty cool names that I'm very thankful for.
Amazing, amazing. Well, hey, first area I want to talk to you about is faith and family. And I want to backtrack a little bit, talk Hunter family. Now, if you say Hunter family here in London, you think of Coach Dale Hunter and Mark Hunter. We're not talking those Hunters. We're talking the Hunter family of Shaunavon, Saskatchewan. Growing up on a family farm, strong influence of your mom and dad, okay, Lauren and Norma, having 4 brothers who all played hockey at a high level and who are all incredible musicians. That didn't just all happen by chance. Question for you. What age did you start playing hockey? And then if in this thing, you can talk to us a little about when did you come to Christ? How did that happen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, thank you. Mom and dad were obviously there. I'm so blessed to be able to call them my parents. Mom's a prayer warrior through and through. She was the push. Mom and dad had an agreement together as a couple. Mom was kind of the push behind the music, and dad was the push behind the sports. But they agreed that if we were going to do one, they had to do the other. And so if we were going to play hockey, we had to take piano lessons and guitar lessons, and vice versa. So that's where the two worlds collided, was just in conjunction with the agreement mom and dad had growing up. So I started playing hockey when I was at about 2 years old. Dad had myself and my brothers on the ice. He worked with us for about 5 years before he put us in where we were playing in an actual league. At the age of around 7, we started playing competitively. And music started right around that 7 years of age too. We started with piano and then kind of branched off into other instruments after that. And so very thankful for that heritage of having those two worlds. As far as my Christian faith, I was 5 years old when I first accepted Jesus into my heart. Since there's obviously been numerous different times that I've given my life over to the Lord once again through my walk and my journey over the course of my life. But I was 5 when I first accepted Jesus into my heart.
Well, let me ask you a question here. Just on that point, in our conversations, you'd mentioned around the age of 8 or 9 that you were diagnosed with a particular disease, and you talk about kind of railroading, or derailing, a potential hockey career, but also the opportunity for a family to link arms and come together in prayer. Can you walk us through that a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it was probably one of them. It's probably been the most defining, I would say, element in my life, just as I was growing older. And you have times in your life where your faith ebbs and flows, and you go through hard times and things where you might question your faith or your journey with the Lord, and does he answer prayer or does he not? And it was probably the main thing in my life that I've been able to keep coming back to, where it was just a very tangible, practical thing that happened. So when I was 8 years old, I was diagnosed with a disease called Perthes disease. And in essence, the ball in my socket in my hip was as if someone had taken a hammer to it. And it was crushed in half, and the half that was remaining was broken into 3 pieces. And when the doctors finally found out what was going on, because I could hardly walk anymore, it was hurting so bad, they told me that the only thing that they could do at this stage, it was in the worst stage that it could possibly be in. And they said that they just stretch your limbs out and they basically put you in a wheelchair, and you're in a wheelchair the rest of your life. And they said, you'll never walk again, let alone play hockey. And I don't have the memory of this, but my parents said that I came home after that and I put my head down on my arms on the table and I started sobbing, and I just said, but Daddy, I just want to play hockey. That's all I want to do, is I want to play hockey. And my parents said, well, son, then what we need to do is we need to start praying. We need to start praying that God will do a miracle in your life and that he'll heal your hip. And so as a family, I remember vividly at nighttime getting down on my knees with mom and dad and praying and begging God to do a miracle in my life. And we went back to the doctor for the following checkup. And I do have a very good memory of this. So the doctors came in and they just kind of put their hands in the air and said, we have no explanation for what has gone on. It doesn't make sense. but your hip has been fully restored. It's been, for some reason, it's perfectly intact. And I remember mom and dad and myself breaking down, just crying, and we knew what was going on. We knew that God had answered our prayers and had healed my hip. And it was a miracle, literally a miracle that God did, where he just took that broken body and healed it. And so during those times in my life where I would be questioning either my faith or my, whether God does truly answer your prayers, I was able to keep coming back to that, going, I have an example in my life where God truly did answer my prayers and healed my body, and he is real, he is there, and he does love us, and he cares for us. And it was a pretty special moment in my life.
That's incredible. Thanks for sharing that. Really appreciate that. It's incredible. I can only imagine those that are listening would look at a story like this and then look kind of into their own lives and say, how has God worked in my own life? And I think there's those moments in our life that, they call us back, and ultimately it shows us that God is in control. God is so much bigger than we could ever imagine. We can't put him into a box. He can bring healing if he so desires. And if he chooses not to, it will teach us, it will teach us about him in other ways and how we can honor him through whatever it is we're going through. And, I came to Christ at 10 at a camp in Northern Ontario, and I remember it clear as day when I accepted Jesus into my heart. It was one of those defining moments that when I would go through rocky times later in life, I would look back to that moment, and nobody can take that moment away from you. And if you have that moment, that's for you. And that's a kiss from Jesus. That's a moment where the Lord revealed himself and showed himself to you. And that's a really strengthening thing. Now, with the players in this camp, I want to move to faith in hockey if we could for a minute, just because I know time's limited. Mm-hmm. The hockey world, we know, Luke, it's full of pressure. It's getting to the next level. It's making a particular team or getting cut from a team and getting demoted and maybe trying to make our way back up. It's, going through moments where we feel like we have to fit in with our teammates, or we feel pressure to do what our teammates are doing and our friends. We feel in school. These kids, in this case, are going back to school in a couple of weeks. They're going to face the pressures of what school brings. Now, as Christians, when we commit our lives to Christ, we begin trying to live each day for Christ. I mean, Jesus said in the book of Luke, okay, no pun intended, if anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross daily, not weekly at church, but every single day, taking up our cross as Christians and following me, following Jesus. Why do I bring this up? A couple of years ago, you did an interview with one of your Swift Current Bronco teammates. He shared a few things that I thought were really cool in terms of your leadership and your character as captain of the Swift Current Broncos. Now, he knew these things were tied directly to your Christian faith and to your family upbringing. The guy said he noticed that you, one, didn't curse in the dressing room or on the ice. You didn't speak poorly of others. You didn't get into some of the off-ice things your teammates were doing. And if I understood him correctly, when your coaches had a player who was struggling, they would often connect those players with you because of how well respected you were amongst the team. Now, I know you'll agree that you didn't make perfect decisions all the time. Totally get that. But clearly God used you to make a lasting impact. Question: how did your faith in God allow you to live in a way that set such a powerful example? And how would you encourage young Christian players today to model Christ in the midst of the pressures that they're facing, not just on ice, but off ice?
Well, first of all, thank you, Mark. That's an encouragement hearing that. And I appreciate that very much. I have to say, though, I 100% agree with you. I by no means have all the right answers, and I most definitely did not handle my life perfectly through a lot of those years. I made my fair share of mistakes, and I would be the first one to admit that. If it wasn't for the Lord and him working through my life and leaning on his strength to walk through a lot of that journey, I don't know where I would be today. So I want to preface it by saying I by no means did it perfectly, but I do think there are, a few things that, just practically speaking, a person can implement into their life while walking through that journey that I think aided me. There was a couple things. One, I kind of touched on it a little bit with my mom being a prayer warrior. I don't know how many angels she had surrounding me, walking through those years. But once again, I do believe prayer was a huge part of it. I was privileged and blessed to have two older brothers that walked the hockey journey ahead of me and were able to, pass down a few things to help me walk through that journey as well. And when I look back on it, two things come to mind. I think number one, it was planting my flags early, and by that I mean letting guys know morally where you stand right away. Not waiting till you're in the middle of a party or a situation that you might find yourself in, and then being pressured to make a decision at that point. The guys knew right off the start. I remember when I was 16 and I had made the team. The guys knew already when parties had come around that I wasn't going to participate in the drinking and participate in the activities that they were maybe doing. And what I found was that it made it a whole lot easier in those moments not to have to be pressured into them. In fact, I found that if I started wavering at all, it almost helped keep me accountable, because I remember guys saying, "Hey, Hunt, I thought I remembered you saying that you weren't going to do this, or that you were," and it was amazing how they almost helped keep me accountable, just because they knew where I stood right away from the start. And I don't mean in an arrogant way or in a judgmental way towards them or condescending way, because I think that can work not in your favor. I believe God calls us to love one another, and so I think treating guys with respect and with love and with kindness, and not in a "I'm better than you because I'm not going to participate in the things that you're doing" type of a way. I don't think that's the route to go. But I think along with that, and this is where I'm grateful for my upbringing with my father. My father was a huge advocate of hard work, and controlling the things that are in your control, and work ethic is one of those things. You have full control. There's a lot of variables in hockey that you don't have control of, but there is one thing that you always have control of, and that is how hard you work. And I tried to pride myself in doing things like being the first one at the rink, being the last one to go home, being the first one on the ice, the last one off the ice. Help as a veteran. I remember trying to help pick the pucks up or pack the bus. A lot of the veterans, when they were 19, 20, they wouldn't help the young guys out. They would just, in fact, if anything, they'd kind of give them a hard time. Whereas I did try hard to just, whether I was 16 as a rookie or 20 as a veteran, I would help pack the bus or unload the bus. Be the first one in the gym, the last one out of the gym. And I think the reason why I'm sharing that is that I tried to set an example with how hard I worked. And I think I'm hoping that maybe there was a respect factor out of that came along with them not giving me such a hard time when it came to where I stood morally or spiritually, because there was a respect factor there as far as how hard I worked on the ice and off the ice. And I think those two things together are things that people can lean on to kind of help you walk through that journey.
I love what you're saying, the practical steps that we can take as believers to model Christ, to model hard work, to model servanthood, to model loving others, to model doing things that we know we need to do, but we don't always feel like doing, and just getting going and doing them. Your dad, as a young kid, had you and your brothers, I believe, memorize a particular poem. Can you recite it for us?
Yeah.
And then talk to us about how that poem relates to following God, and how it relates to just the importance of hard work and using time wisely.
Yeah. Yeah, he taught us right from a young age. Yeah, those were probably two things that I took away, almost the most of, as a kid growing up with my dad. I mean, he's my hero, and you won't find a better man and a harder worker. But he put a premium on time usage along with your work ethic. And the poem was called "Life is Just a Minute," and it said, "Life is just a minute, only 60 seconds in it. Forced upon you, can't refuse it, didn't seek it, didn't choose it, but it's up to you to use it. You must suffer if you lose it, give an account if you abuse it. Just a tiny little minute, but eternity is in it." And I think it's just, it pours into so many avenues of your life, is that God has given us a certain amount of time here on earth. And it's up to us to maximize that. And I think first and foremost, it's by showing God's love to others and using our time here on earth to witness to others and show God's love and kindness. And then just from a practical, standpoint, back to the work ethic side of things, not wasting our time and using the gifts that God has given us to further his kingdom. And I think that was just, that's been a staple in my life, looking back. Just trying as hard. And again, I didn't do it perfectly and I wasted my fair share of time. I know that. But it was just a good reminder growing up that we do only have a certain amount of time on this earth. And it's just a good reminder to just think of how best can I use that in those moments and not to waste them. We really appreciate your time today in Faith in Hockey, and diving into a bit of your story. And we just give you thanks, and we give thanks to the Lord for the work he continues to do in your life and in your family's life. And thanks for being such an encouragement to us today. So thanks so much, Luke. Well, thank you, Mark. Thanks for having me. Thanks for giving me the privilege to be a part of this. I'm honored, and I really appreciate you and what you guys are doing. And I wish everyone there the best of luck, and I wish I could be with you guys there in person. Maybe someday we'll be able to do that.
For sure. Thanks, brother. God bless.
Thanks, Mark.